Saint Kevin. It is disappointing to go to the source material on many of the early Irish saints and discover the paucity of historical data. This is the situation even with such a prominent saint as Kevin, or Coimgen, of Glendalough. That he existed is beyond doubt. There is substantial agreement on when and where he lived. 5 versions of his life, some in Latin, some in Irish, are preserved in Brussels, Oxford, and Dublin, respectively. The earliest life, a Latin version, dates from about the 10th or 11th century, and in common with the later 4, it is sadly deficient in historical content. Side by side with this historical poverty is a wealth of tradition, lore, and legend, both in regard to the saint himself and to his famous monastic site at Glendalough, Wicklow County. Early life. In the lives of the Irish saints, the saint is presented as being of royal Leinster stock on both sides of the family, but as this is a hagiographical convention, one cannot be sure. At an early age, he was fostered out to St. Petrock, a monk of Padstow in Cornwall, while was then pursuing scripture studies in Ireland. After 12 Asian under him, Kevin underwent further training under 3 holy men, Ogan, Locan, and Enna, at their little monastic settlement at Kilnamana, the suggested location of which is north, east of Rathdrum, also in County Wicklow. He was ordained to the priesthood by a Bishop Lugai. He is reputed to have been a wonderful lover of nature, comfortable in the company of bird and beast, sensitive to their songs and sounds, a devotee of deep solitude, fiercely ascetic, given to prayerful vigils under the open canopy of the heavens, and like his siblings, male and female, he is said to have been remarkable for holiness and physical beauty. It was this latter characteristic that gave rise to the story of Kevin's encounter with an attractive and persistent young lady who became enamored of the youth. A version of the tale, much different from the original, and popularized by Zosimus, the Dublin balladeer, gives her the name Kathleen. Zosimus claims in his entertaining doggerel verses that Kevin summarily disposed of the poor girl in most unsaintly fashion. He threw her right into the lake and she sank right down to the bottom. The account given in the early lives is somewhat less dramatic and certainly more Christian. The story goes that a young lady cultivated Kevin's friendship in the hope of winning his heart. The innocent Kevin, not recognizing the hidden agenda, returned the friendship. One day, however, when she managed to meet him on his own, she revealed her real intentions and, literally, assaulted him with kisses. Kevin tried to maintain his composure and not only resisted all the blandishments of the besotted girl, but flung himself into a clump of nettles to cool any desires he might have had. And to cool down his attacker, he grabbed a bunch of the burning nettles and administered them vigorously to her so that, as the author of the Life philosophically comments, the fire, without put out the fire within. The upshot of the entire encounter was that Kathleen repented of her action, asked pardon of God and Kevin, and became a nun, the city of St. Kevin. If Kevin loved solitude, then his choice of Glendalough was a truly inspired one. Even today, with its interpretative center and tourist traffic, it retains a calm and charm of rare quality. 100 years ago, Bishop John Healy, author of Ireland's Ancient Schools and Scholars, wrote, "Glendalough, the Valley of the Two Lakes is, for a religious and cultivated mind, one of the most interesting spots in Ireland. Nature has made it wild and beautiful. Religion has hallowed its scenery with the holiest associations. The genius of song has lit up its dark lakes and mountains with all the radiance of romance. It is one of those places the very sight of which raises the mind from mean and sordid thoughts to the contemplation of what is beautiful and good. Here Kevin, the fair, begotten one, lived without fire or roof, but to an unusual degree attended by bird and beast in the surrounding wilderness. The monastic site at Glendalough is set deep among the Wicklow Hills. Mountains of over 2,000 feet surround the narrow valley in which it is situated except for an opening towards the level ground on the banks of the Avonmore River. Glendalough is protected from the north winds by the Braca and Condry Hills, but the peaks of Derrybawn and Lugduff to the south exclude the sunshine. It was probably on the inhospitable slopes of Lugduff that the founder of the monastery first settled, above his head a lofty and precipitous cliff. At his feet the dark waters of the upper of two lakes, from which the place name Glendalough, Valley of the Two Lakes, is derived. Desart Coemhin, or Kevin's Desert, is the name now given to this area of the valley, where the chief remaining ruins are Reefer Church and Temple na Skellig, together with a scatter of low stone crosses, the footings of St. Kevin's Cell, and some other amorphous archaeological remains. It is likely that, with the increase of disciples, this site proved too restrictive. Whether this be the reason or not, the monastery was relocated a little further. Down the valley in the delta, where, as the life puts it, two sparkling rivers meet. The rivers still sparkle, the Glendalough and the Glendalough. They come together in the middle of the valley to form the Glendalough River and flow on to join the Avonmore at Lara. At the place of their first confluence stands what has long been called the monastic city of St. Kevin. Legends galore. During his time in Glendalough, Kevin is said to have spent an hour each night in the cold lake waters. During this hour, he was tormented by the presence of a menacing monster that used to swim around him. Then God sent an angel to Glendalough on a threefold mission to reduce Kevin's penances, to drive away the monster, and to warm up the lake. The angel came each night and supervised the implementation of all three tasks. Legends abound concerning Kevin's relationship with bird and beast. Perhaps the best known is the story of Kevin praying the cross vigil, hands stretched out in the form of a cross, when a little bird not only perched on his hand but built its nest and laid her eggs there. Not wanting to disturb the little bird, Kevin kept his hands outstretched until the little ones were hatched out and had flown away. On another occasion, when Kevin was at prayer beneath a tree, a wild boar, being pursued by the hounds of Brandub, king of Leinster, rushed into Kevin's cell, but the pursuing dogs stopped short at the door and sat down. Meanwhile, Kevin remained at prayer while the birds of the air, comfortably perched on his head and shoulders or flying round about him, continued to warble and sing their songs of praise. Even the rustle of the very leaves of the trees in Glendalough was thought to be a sweet music chanted to ease the great penances of Saint. It is related that at one time in his life, Kevin set out on pilgrimage. He had hardly reached Dublin when a holy hermit named Ríordáin accosted him and said, "O servant of God, where are you going? It is better for you to remain in one spot, serving the Lord, than to go about from place to place in your old age, for you have heard that no bird while flying can hatch her eggs." Kevin returned to base, and St. Garbin stayed with him as a disciple. This legend is probably included to discourage monks from wandering all over the place in the name of pilgrimage. The life recording this incident is probably of 10th or 11th century date, because it comments the Dublin of that time was a powerful and warlike city, wherever dwell men fierce in battle and skillful in handling fleets, surely a reference to the Vikings. Another good reason for not going on pilgrimage is to have the care of a little baby. This circumstance arose when Kevin was asked to care for Folan, the child of a broken marriage. The saint joyfully undertook the fosterage and, wonder of wonders, to supply nourishment for the baby. A doe came down from the mountain each day and waited until she had been milked by one of the monks, so that the child blossomed and grew to man's estate, until he ultimately inherited the chiefdom of his father. Two favorite disciples of Kevin were Saint Barach, later of Termonbury on the Shannon, and Moharog, a Briton, and founder of a church at Delgany. It was from him that Kevin is said to have received the viaticum, the body and blood of Christ, shortly before his death. Among other friends mentioned in the lives is Kieran of Clonmacnoise, after whom is named a chapel now among the ruins of the monastic city. Shortly after the death of Kieran, Kevin, together with Comseal, Comgall of Bangor, and Canis of Agbo and Kilkenny, attended a conference on the hill of Visnich, and the lives say that a very big crowd of people came there just to see Comseal. Afterwards, Kevin is said to have returned to Glendalough and lived out the remaining 60 years of his life. The Annals of Ulster give his death as occurring on 3 June 618, when he was 120 years old. Down the road of time, Kevin is credited with having written a rule, but if he did, it is no longer extant. The monastery continued to expand after his death and enjoyed a high reputation for learning and piety. It also had several daughter houses forming a paruchia or federation with the original foundation. While Kevin himself would not seem to have been ordained bishop, Glendalough is a diocese from time immemorial, and in medieval times saw itself ranking next to Kildare in importance. Because of its reputation, Glendalough was looked upon as a place of importance in life and in death. It was there at Reefort Church, Ríordáin, the royal cemetery, that the local O'Toole kings found their last resting place, and it was Lawrence, a member of that same clan, who initiated a new era of renewal and spiritual development, making Glendalough famous in another age.